Welcome to Change, produced by the Senior Bond of Schaumburg, where nutritious meals, friendly peers, and social activities are available every day of the week. Under the able direction and guidance of Marina Lvovich, the cost and location are available to all. And we seniors meet monthly as a panel to discuss events that have happened in the past, near past, and present, with a look towards the future. Today our program is on shopping, from mom and pop stores on to internet shopping. I'd like to introduce our panel. We have Jean Sargent, who was born in Chicago, grew up in Houston.
No, Evanston.
What?
Evanston.
Evanston. Oh, she's a native, okay, and has lived in Iowa, Vermont, and Indiana. She presently has lived at Friendship Village for 11 years, and she has 8 children, 11 grandchildren, and 17 great-grandchildren. And in her former life, she was an office worker and receptionist. Marion Bellhouse was born in Ozone Park, Queens, New York, and she's lived in Hoffman Estates now for 36 years. She has 3 children, 6 grandchildren, and at the gentle age of 75, has 2 great-grandchildren. She was formerly an office manager for several companies. Carmella, at the gentle age of 93, is a native of Chicago. She was born and lived there all her life before moving to Friendship Village 5 years ago, and she has 2 children, 3 grandchildren, and 4 great-grandchildren. She formerly worked at Carson's after her career in a mom and pop store, and she is known in Schaumburg as Russ Parker's wife. He was a very influential contributor to the development of Schaumburg and even has a park named after him. Congratulations, Carmella. Today we are talking about shopping, and whether it be bartering, trading, buying, and so on, it's endemic to the human existence. It's been with us from the beginning as people realize the dependence we have on one another. It has progressed through time with a domino effect. One activity has led to another, although in some ways the past has remained, but gradually changed. We, in our own lifetimes, and some of us here today in their 90s, have seen great changes in our ability to purchase and acquire the things we need. Self-sufficiency was replaced by the desire to have goods that were not produced or nearby, but sometimes far away. Travel and interaction with neighbors or distant people led to bartering and trade. You have what I want, and I have what you want. Trade routes soon developed. The history of the purchase of Manhattan, New York by the Dutch from the Indians for $24 in beads and baubles is still told today, and I found out recently that is a myth. However, let's go forward 100 years. United States coins first minted in 1792 in Philadelphia, and they replaced the baubles and beads. Transactions using money are a way of life for us today, but soon to disappear, I understand. Stores and places to earn and spend money led to mom and pop stores, push carts and street vendors, to groceries under one roof, the supermarket. As Harry Gordon Selfridge stated, excite the mind and the hand will reach for the pocket. With that, we have the evolution of the department store. Today, we have large box stores, shopping malls, fast food restaurants, and more. With the introduction of the internet, Amazon, and online buying have come into being. What will the future hold? That remains to be seen. But first, let's talk about the near past. By working faithfully, 8 hours a day, you may eventually get to be boss and work 12 hours a day. And Robert Frost, the poet, said that. If you owned a mom and pop store in the early 20th century, you actually worked more than 12 hours. Carmella, you owned a mom and pop store when you were much younger. Would you say that statement is true?
Yes.
In what way?
Well, I was only probably about a year old when my parents and his brother and his wife bought a store on the south side of Chicago. And it was just wonderful. I grew up in the store, basically. I guess I even sat in the stairway going upstairs drinking my bottle of milk while Mom and Dad worked. And I can remember that very vaguely, sitting there having my bottle of milk. But later, when I got a little older, a teenager, then I could have my nickel bag of potato chips and my 10-cent Coke. That was my treat for the day.
My gracious, the prices were a lot different then, weren't they?
Very much different, yes.
And what about credit?
We gave credit to everyone, yes.
In what way?
We had, the little sales books, sales receipts, and we had a rack with names on it. And our regular customers could shop all week and just charge it. And then at the end of the week or the end of the month, they paid for their groceries.
And people were honest back then.
Oh,
weren't
yes.
they?
Oh, yeah. We didn't have to ask them for their money. They came, and money was very tight.
Oh, yes.
And it was wonderful. You were friends with your customers, They walked to the store every day. Very few people bought a week's worth of groceries. Going out every day to the store was wonderful, and they walked. They didn't have cars.
Right, yeah.
If a family had one car, that was good.
It was considered rich.
Yeah, but we would take customers' orders over the phone and fill their orders, and then we would deliver it to their home.
Right. Well, we're going to continue on that because you were a shopper in a mom and pop store, but we'll be back in 1 minute to continue our conversation. Jean, you shopped at mom and pop stores. What did you like about them or not like about those stores?
When we moved to Vermont, it was a whole new culture for me, coming from the Midwest. And we had general stores in the villages. Okay. The town that I lived in, we had more sophisticated shopping. We had storefronts. Had furniture stores, and we had a pizza parlor, and we had a bank, and so forth. But some of the smaller stores had general stores. And the general stores usually had everything that you'd ever want. And if they couldn't get it, you didn't need it.
It was a nice philosophy.
That was the New England way of doing things. They had everything from snow shovels to lawnmowers.
Push kind of lawnmowers.
Push kind of lawnmowers, right. Dry goods, we used to call it dry goods, bolts of material. They had bread, they had ladies' underwear, men's underwear, brooms and dustpans. They had a bulletin board outside opposite the entrance to the store. It was the social media at the time. And these were all little pieces of paper advertising their wares. Babysitting, lawn mowing, manicures by Monica, for instance, and all kinds of little pieces of paper. And you could take the phone number and the name, and be able to call these people if you needed their services.
You know, what you're just saying is the same thing Marion was talking with her brother in Queens, all having different kinds of stores. What were you talking about with him?
Well, most of the stores, because we didn't have a car, were within 3 blocks of our house. And like you said before, you could only carry so much, so you had to go every other day. But we had a deli. We lived in a very ethnic neighborhood. It was very Italian on one side and very Irish. So we had a grocery store. We had a vegetable store. We had a button store, which was my favorite store as a kid. My mom did all our sewing on our clothes, so we'd go to the button store, and the lady had buttons all over. And then we had the bakery, which we went all the time, and then we had the butcher. And like you said, we would go, and Mom would give us a list, and we'd say to the butcher, here's Mom's list. He'd fill it, write it in his book, and then we'd go home. And every once in a while, when he felt we needed a payment, he'd send a note home with us saying, but he always gave us bologna, so we always volunteered to go. The same with the bakery. The bakery always gave us a cookie. But you knew everybody, and they knew us. And I found at times that was very difficult as a kid because they knew you so well and they knew your family. If you were in trouble, forget it. But that was our main street. And then we had what they called Liberty Avenue, and I don't know if that all the way went to Brooklyn or not. But it had everything. It had a little store. Everything was a storefront. The library, the bank. We had a little tiny bohack, and that was like a supermarket. And actually, you just had dry goods. It was canned goods, boxed goods. That was they didn't sell vegetables or anything.
Well, you're mentioning supermarkets. I think that's what really started to put the small mom and pop stores and the individual stores, they started to put them out of business. What are your memories? Is that one of the reasons that you closed your store, Carmella?
Yes. As you saw in that picture, the shelves looked fairly empty. Well, that was just months before we literally closed up the store. You just tried to sell out. But we couldn't make, people were the only people we really had that did any shopping at the very end was our meat market. We had carried excellent quality of meat, and they liked that. And because in the small stores, you could order exactly what you wanted.
Exactly, yeah.
In your supermarkets, you had to buy the packaged stuff.
So there was more choices, I think, when you got to the supermarkets. And also, like you had the general store, then we had the department stores that came in. So that really, put an end to a lot of the little things that were actually happening. And there's a statement that says you swallow hard when you discover the old coffee shop that you knew is now a chain pharmacy, and the place where you first kissed so-and-so is now a discount electronics dealer, and that where you bought this very jacket that you're wearing is now rubble behind a blue plywood fence in a future office building. Everything seems to change, and it's, as we mentioned before, a domino effect. And it changes sometimes for the good and sometimes not for the good. But this is life. Now, many rural people weren't able to shop at stores, and because of the time or distance, and they use catalogs. And many other people use them also. Did any of you use catalogs?
Oh, sure.
In what way?
I was happy to get the Sears catalog.
Oh, right.
And then the J.C. Penney catalog came
And Montgomery Ward. And they were thick.
Right,
Yes.
right.
Yes.
I know.
The poor mailman.
Yes, when he had to deliver them all. But it was convenience that, you can look through. I know that was our wish list
Right.
at Christmas. You know, we'd go through it. There was a special catalog for Christmas.
Oh, yeah, always, yeah.
But not only the rural people used it, it was, you know, other people that were
city
doing it
people.
also.
Sure.
You know, whenever you think of the past, and we're not finished with the past yet, it brings back lots of memories. So we're going to continue in the next segment. Irma Bombeck said, "The odds of going into a store for a loaf of bread and coming out with only a loaf of bread are 3 billion to 1. I think we are all addicted to shopping in some form or another." Now, one thing we didn't discuss that I know was ubiquitous with those people from Chicago, Maxwell Street, for us from Brooklyn or New York, it might have been Belmont Avenue, the push carts and street vendors. What are your memories of these, Marion, the push carts and the street vendors, and what's your favorite memory there?
Okay, the ice vendor was the one that came all the time, and because in those days we only had a tiny little freezer in our refrigerator, and my dad would always go out there, and you said bicker, and they used to bicker about the price, but my favorite was, and I have a picture of it, was Charlotte Russe. They used to come around, and for 10 cents it was a little piece of cake and lots of whipped cream, a cherry, and around with a little cardboard.
Something like this?
Oh my gosh. How did you get that? Did you make
Homemade.
Wow.
That was our surprise, so they
Oh,
had
my
to keep the box
goodness.
here for that.
They would come around on a little push cart, and all the kids in the neighborhood, it was a dime, and all the neighborhoods would save up a dime because when they would come, and it was really a little tiny nothing. It was just the cake. The other vendor that used to come around all the time was the vegetable and fruits on the truck. Used to come on a truck.
Sometimes horse-drawn.
No, not for me.
We did. We had the horse-drawn ones. Go ahead.
And we had a bungalow bar, and that used to be an ice cream truck that used to come around, and of course used to get your ices or your little ice creams, and
The forerunner to
my
good,
brother
good humor.
Yeah, good humor. Bungalow bar was the lower price one, and Good Humor was a little more. But my brother reminded me that we used to every summer have a truck come around, and it was an amusement truck, and it had a whip on it, and all us kids would go on the whip, and I said, wow,
That was only 5 cents.
vaguely remember that. And the pony ride. The man used to come around and to try and get your picture on it. Yeah.
Well, this, you know, times have really, really changed. But you wanted to know how this actually, what happened. This is a little bit of a takeoff on the Charlotte Russe. And in this third segment, we always have a section that has a little something. But I made a little bit of a change because of, you'll see what we have here. I used the dessert shells, and they had an indent in it, so I put a little bit of cherries in it instead of whipped cream, because with this hot weather it was
would
not
melt.
going to work. I used Cool Whip, and for a base I used this. You could use a cookie for it, and put that in, put the cherries on top, and then put the Cool Whip on top of that. And of course you had to have the cherry, but you did have to have a little cardboard that went around it, and it really isn't, you know, too necessary, but this is what it does look like.
So good.
But kids love it. We loved it. It was a treat when we actually did have all this.
I think it was only New York.
What?
I
Yes.
think it was only New York
It's called
that
the
had
Lost the lost food of New York, according to the website. Now, with the advent of the computer and the introduction of the internet, all our shopping is changing. We now are in credit cards, but now they have bit marks and everything else, and people predict that in the near future we are going to have no money at all that we have to carry around. How do you feel about this change, Jean? With the internet and no money at all?
It's the convenience more than anything else. I have a credit card. I still like to use cash, but I use my credit card quite a bit.
Mm-hmm. What do you feel, Carmella?
Well, I think I'm with Jean, though. I hardly ever carry cash at all. I always use my credit card. And it's much easier and safer as far as I'm concerned.
And some people now just hold up their phone.
Yes. You see
and
that
their phone does the transaction for them.
But a lot of things through the computer, I do not shop through the computer at all.
Right.
I don't like doing that. I like the old-fashioned way where I can go to the store and pick out what I want.
Right, or a dress and try it on. But I saw even as of late, they having virtual dresses and virtual figures that can try on the dress for you, and you can see if you like it because it's accustomed to your shape.
Wow.
It's what we
That's
call
amazing.
visual.
Yeah, right.
Things have really changed. You're more up on the computer. How do you feel about it?
Okay, I'm a slow learner when it comes to the computer, and I like going into the stores. I like walking around the stores and seeing what everything has. But I have learned to do online ordering of flowers. I like to order puzzles online. I like to do, I've only ordered through Amazon a couple toys for my granddaughters that I couldn't find in the stores after looking. My husband is much better at that. He is all for using online. And the other thing is someday, if we can't drive, that'll be the answer, because it's delivered to the door. Even food now is delivered to the door.
Yes, Peapod.
So I think it'll be really, it's just getting used to it.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, she said food's delivered to the store. We delivered to the person's home.
Right.
On Saturday, we had a list of our regular customers. We used to call them every Saturday morning and get their orders of what they wanted for the week. And then we would fill the orders and deliver it to their home.
And you didn't charge them for it?
No.
Not at all. Okay, as it has been said, we love shopping, and the saying goes, if you love it, buy it. If you don't, somebody else will. We want to thank you very much for participating in the panel. I think we learned a lot about the past and how it has changed, and we can look forward to the future. And I'd like to invite you and everyone else to come to the Bond, where we do have social interaction, parties, trips, bingo, a delicious salad bar on Tuesday and Thursday, and the prices are well within range. We also have a food market from the Chicago Food Depository on alternate Fridays. So check it out and come to the Bond, enjoy our company, and enjoy the benefits. Thank you, and God bless you all, and God bless everyone, and bring peace to the world.